This is Tyler, your antisocial critic and the host of the AntiSocial Network, your number one source for anachronistic conversations online. Come join us each week to hear opinions from some of the best voices discussing entertainment, politics, religion, and modern life on the internet today, most of which you've never heard of, but I have. Joining us this week on Antisocial Entertainment is Lou Aguilar. He is a writer who's written for the Washington Post and the American Spectator, and he's written several books. His newest book, The Christmas Spirit, is going to be released as of the time this podcast is live. Good morning. How's it going with you?
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. It's funny in your little intro to my bio, Washington Post. Well, I contribute to American Spectator now, but yeah, I was a reporter for Washington Post and USA Today, and then I decided to make up the facts and start writing fiction. Unfortunately, so did the Washington Post and USA Today.
Oops. Well, I obviously I like to do a little bit of research, so I did the most amount possible by skimming over the your Amazon profile just to kind of get a sense of what you kind of did. So, how did you get into writing then?
Well, it's funny. I started out wanting to write books and short stories. Before I even thought about journalism, I loved to read. I loved Tarzan, the Three Musketeers, just ate it up. And you'd have to go to the library back then. There was no Amazon. Back in my day, no. and I just, God, I loved going to the library, just taking the bus to the library and spending all day there. It was magic. It was like Oz. And so I tried my hand at writing, and then, of course, I realized, because I also loved movies like you, I realized that, hey, these things didn't just happen; they were written. I loved James Bond, for instance, and I read every Ian Fleming book there was. But when I see the movies, they were wonderful. It was a completely different universe. But so I decided to be a screenwriter. But being in Washington, D.C., growing up in Washington, D.C., which is where I grew up, I had opportunities like to intern at Channel 5. My first big job was as an intern, a paid intern, writing news segments for television news, 10 o'clock news, local news. And so I got sucked into the journal, which I discovered, hey, it depends. Both journalism and English fiction depend on great writing. They're different styles. They're different disciplines. But I found I was pretty good at both. It's funny about the newspaper and news business. I grew up loving the hard-boiled Clark Gable reporter. The people have a right to know, and just Cary Grant. So I decided to become that guy in real life. And anyway, so my first book, my second book. I've written so many. No, I've only written my last book, Paper Tigers, was an autobiographical. It's semi-autobiographical about being at the Washington Post as an intern copy aide. Only I did it today. I placed it, my life and romances, believe it or not, against the background of Donald Trump, which made it a lot of fun. But yeah, it's one big blender right now for me. And as I said, writing fiction, I could have stayed at the Washington Post.
Well, there you go. How did you end up at the Spectator then?
Well, I just during the last, after Trump got elected, with my, I had contacts from ex-Washington Post people, Michael Barone, great, one of the dean of political opinion and data. He suggested I do it, and I did it, and they like my material. I specialize. It's what we do. I just found somehow a niche that was political because they're conservative like I am, but still dealing with movies and books and so it's most people there are too important and busy on the election. What the hell, So I find an angle. Yeah, like the last one. I hope you read it. The comparing Donald Trump.
I did, yeah.
Don Corleone. I mean, no, nobody else. Nobody. I mean, that just all our movie viewing. It just blends together. Yeah, of course, he's been hit. He's been hit hard. He's presumed dead. It's right there. But that's just me. That's just my convoluted mind.
Well, yeah, I think I found you right around the time you wrote that Gone with the Wind piece, which I did end up citing when I reviewed it over the summer.
Yeah,
which
very nice about it.
That was a very good article. I mean, that movie's controversy was so astroturfed, and it was so pointless, and it was kind of funny that I think that Amazon, I think they sold off like every single one of their copies of Gone with the Wind on DVD like the week that happened, just because everyone's like, I gotta preserve it.
That's the funny thing, Tyler. About 15 years ago, I'll never forget this conversation with my brother, and it was my brother and my dad, who was still alive, and we were collecting. We were big on DVD collecting, and my brother came in and he said, my brother's in the movie business, very successful, as a second unit director, but he was looking at my DVD collection, and he said, in a few years, you won't need any of these. You won't need it, I go, what do you mean? It's the third man, Casablanca. How can you? He said, no, it's not, you're not going to need it. You're not going to need physical copies of anything. And I said, and I go, oh, come on, Drew. I mean, I love these little, and sure enough, of course, he was absolutely right. But what he didn't count on is cancel culture. And so, yeah, like you said about Gone with the Wind, people bought it and drove. It's available. It's right there on TCM for now. But what if it's not? I mean, what if it's like To Kill a Mockingbird and Huckleberry Finn just wiped out, removed? You're gonna need those physical podcast until, of course, they come and grab them. That's a little later.
Well, I don't. When the left-wing death squads come for my DVD collection, we'll have more serious problems than just that. So.
Second Amendment, baby.
So I don't want to bury the lead too deeply. I wanted to talk a little about your upcoming book, which.
Oh, thank you. No, that's a lead. That's a lead I want to bring back.
Yeah, because I don't know exactly what day this is going to go up, but this will probably come out roughly within the proximity of the book going live. So.
Wonderful. Well, I'm very happy. I always wanted to write. Everybody loves A Christmas Carol, Dickens, and then the idea of Christmas and love and fan. I mean, there are two cable Hallmark channel 24/7. That's another story. But it's funny that it's. So I always wanted to write a love story with a ghost, kind of a Christmas Carol. Christmas Carol is the ultimate masterpiece of Christmas, but there is a love story, one that he disdained and let go, but I wanted to focus on that, and I also wanted to bring out a lot of the things I've been writing about. I've been writing about the basic disappearance of men from the arts, basically real men. I mean, forget the Western. I mean, that just I grew up with Westerns, and so anyway, I want to write, and yet there's an entire. I'm sorry if I'm rambling.
No, it's okay.
There's an entire huge the romance industry worldwide, but in America, it's huge. I mean, it's $1 billion of books that women want to read about, manly men that come and sweep them off their feet, basically. And yet, if you look at Hollywood, which used to be full of that stuff, now it's like, you can't, if you offer, let me think, Jennifer Lawrence, who I don't particularly like or think she's particularly attractive, but if you offer Jennifer Lawrence $3 million to do, a movie where she's rescued by the Lord of she would just slap your face, even though millions of women would love it and go, right? But she wouldn't do it because it's political. So there's nothing. There's all these kind of manly type women that are not particularly glamorous or attractive. That's Hollywood. I've been writing and knocking it for years. However, there's a zillion people wanting love and magic and Christmas. That's another thing. I could have called my book The Holiday Spirit and be politically correct, but I said no. I'm going all out. I live dangerously, the Christmas spirit. So I wrote a kind of a Ghost of Mrs. Muir, but a modern version with a modern woman, and the other thing I did, which is the other element I added, which is completely verboten, and it's not just film. Unfortunately, the publishing industry. Look what happened to Woody Allen, right? Woody Allen, great filmmaker. You got Manhattan right there.
Yeah, I do.
Amazing stories. Somebody who's been from classic Hollywood to now, and he writes a book about his life and his art, and the publisher cancels him because the people in the firm object. And it's that's madness. I mean, literally, that's not like a Woody Allen movie right there. And so I wrote. So I said, okay, I'm going to write. I basically put my time and effort where my I'd say mouth, where my keypad is, and I wrote a Christmas love story with a ghost. And it's just out. I'm hoping everyone gets it and gives it for Christmas. And thanks for the opportunity to introduce it. You're the first.
Sure. I mean, it sounds like a simple enough pitch. You said that, I remember you talking vaguely, like about a month or two ago, that the book was fast-tracked, like you didn't expect it was going to be in publishers.
Oh, no, right. I handed it in September 2nd, and thinking, okay, yeah, I mean, and normally it wouldn't be. It just, the publisher, very good publisher, World Castle, very, again, romance, that's most of their stuff. Now, me, I'm of the Sam Spade, Raymond Chandler school, but I decided to be sensitive and write, because I love Christmas and I love character, real men and real women. I decided to, and because I've been writing about this, I decided to put it to the test. So September 2nd, I handed it in, and the publisher wrote me back, say, yeah, we really like it. Normally, this would be next Christmas, but we don't have a big Christmas, so I was lucky.
Wow, that's amazing timing that they would fast track it that quickly.
This just dropped on their lap. My thing just dropped on their lap like Santa Claus, down the chimney. It's funny, yesterday I got an email from, you're supposed to send a book to, it's too, I have an agent, but when I told him it was 21,000 words, it's really a novella. It's not a novel. I said, hey, can you do something? 21,000 words? What? No, it's not worth anybody's time and effort. So anyway, yesterday I got an email from another publisher. You're only supposed to send it one at a time, but they don't get back to you forever. So I sent it to 3, and all 3 of them want. Yesterday I said, "Hey, we want this for next Christmas," And I said, well, thank you very much. I mean, I'm sorry you read it. I wish I could have. I wish there'd been a way to stop you, but it's already out. You
At
know.
that point, you just sent him the Amazon link, being like, "Hey, thanks, but someone already got to it."
It's funny, Tyler, because there's books. I've got friends who are trying to get published, and if you self-publish, you're not. I mean, if any, I mean, it's one thing if Stephen King or Grisham decides to self-publish. I mean, they're huge writers, but if Joe Blow, who can't write, can self-publish, you can't. You don't want to be in an area where you compete against people. So either you if you're a professional, you need a publisher. So I have friends. I'm reading a book now by a friend who literally can't find a publisher, and it's not bad. So I'm lucky. It was and badly needed this year, I may add.
Yeah, there's a desperate need for a little injection of optimism right about now.
Well, just sweetness.
Well, yeah.
Sweetness and that's the thing about that's the thing about my books. It's about nice people, nice people, and yeah, and everything is so even pre-election, even pre-Trump, everything is so dark and dingy and dismal and Walking Dead stuff. Early on I had a professor, a mentor in college, and he said, always try to write, the goodness of people, So, I mean, there's great stuff, Thomas Harris stuff, that's fine, but man, there are more serial killers on television than there's ever been in real life,
So what is the... I haven't had a book published as of yet. So what is the process like exactly, other than just submitting? You said you went through your...
Well, that's what I meant to say. If you write a novel of a certain length, and this is a novella, so my agent could not do anything with it. So I just went straight myself to publisher. But if you write a book, I mean, I don't know what genre would it be like, maybe if you
Well, I have a rough draft for a political essay book. It just got like
nonfiction.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a different.
Yeah, I know it's a little different, but
that's a different kettle of fish. I mean, you can find a home for anything, but you could political stuff, books, those things are big sellers. The process is first you try to get an agent, number one. You write a book of a certain length, you try to get an agent, and they're out there. There's plenty of them. Now, depending on what the political slant of your book is, it's much easier to be a liberal. Although conservative books sell through the roof, But yeah, so I don't know, but you can get an agent for nonfiction. Fiction is harder. Fiction is a different.
I would imagine that seems to be a pretty hyper-competitive market. Like, everyone wants to get into that.
Well, everybody wants to write the great American novel.
Sorry.
Before the great American novel gets canceled.
Oh, well, gosh. Imagine how many great novels are out there right now that are just going to be lost in the ether for all time because they self-published instead of going through the process.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, it's not even like books that are bad. It's that there's probably, I'm sure there's like 1,000 awful paperback books that just get self-published, but there's going to be that one guy who just doesn't get any attention because of how flooded the market is.
We can't worry about that one guy. He's got to find a home.
He's slaving away at a Kmart somewhere. He just wants his book published so bad.
Yeah. It's funny, Well, I'm reading a book by a friend of mine, and he literally can't get an agent. He'll be able to get this published, but it's about writers who get hired by a mysterious entity that they don't know who, and they have to sign a contract saying, uh, everything you write belongs to us. So if you see it in any capacity, anywhere, you can't tell anybody. So eventually they start. There's like four of them, and eventually they start seeing their stuff in movies. A scene they wrote in a movie, they start to see it in the news. Anyway, how they handle it, I haven't gotten any further, but but that's a good question. Would you write something? Is it more important to you to see it exist and get no credit for it? You had nothing to do with it, or it's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, I mean that's the eternal question. Do you just want to write for yourself, or do you want the art to get out there? That's
Isn't it? Yeah, it's intriguing and it's very good.
well, good
And
for
and
him.
yet, and yet, he's he's getting rejected left and right. So far, the book's not bad.
How did you
I,
end
I
up
mean, I don't want
getting?
to plug.
How did you end up getting Paper Tigers published then?
I don't want to plug anyone else's books. So, Paper Tigers. Paper Tigers. That one is a real book. I mean, it's it's really good. I hate to toot my own horn, but it's really good. It's funny. It's everything that I know about writing, about rhythm, about romance, about wit. It's great. Yet, my God, it's a conservative guy. Now, if you really study it, you figure out that it pretty much sides with a conservative boy and a beautiful feminist patrician, Boston girl, both at the Washington Post, but a nice the, not the kind that wears green hair and pussy hats and is out shouting at or screaming in their cars because Trump.
I'm getting a His Girl Friday vibe from it.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. It's a book, but that's exactly what, and it breaks my heart because it's really good, and those characters like his girl Friday, they deserve they deserve a bigger life and more recognition, and it did get published because no my agent he's in London, and the guy's amazing, and he's in London, and they have a huge book clientele, huge. And he just said, "Lou, I mean, in the very first scene, my he, the they come to the Washington Post at the same time, and he's scoping her from the back. he, he's scoping her, and he finds out that she's a copy aide. It used to be copy boy, but now it's copy aide. He finds out that she's a copy aide too, and they get on the elevator, and already the patter starts, and people just go no, and it was too close to Me Too, and it just so the agencies wouldn't although some of them liked it, but I panicked, and a publisher wanted it, a very small, anyway, it was the worst. It was the worst deal I made in my life. I wanted it out there during Trump and fast, so I went with a small publisher that let it die, basically.
Oh, that's a shame. I mean,
I
it's
hope after when I'm the new when I'm the new John Grisham. Oh no, who's the guy? Dan Brown. When I'm the new Dan Brown, I hope they go back and find it as my earlier triumph. But yeah, no, I love Paper Tigers, and people would love it. But of course, if this holds, if this election thing holds, it really hasn't. It only works with Trump as president, because people go crazy.
I mean, I think people are going to remember that time regardless. It's no one's going to get over the last 4 years. That's the thing. It's like,
Yeah, but too many important people loathe it and hate it, and too many people that can affect your career are on the wrong side, in my point of view.
I think you mentioned in your Don article that you tried to get ads published for Paper Tigers on Facebook unsuccessfully.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. I've never heard anything. What you're referring to is Facebook has a function where they'll boost your post. So if you have a product that you're selling, they'll boost it. You just pay extra amount. You know, I don't know how many followers I have on Facebook, 800. I have no idea, but they'll boost it to like 20,000. And a book, you know, so the book, yeah, it has a political plot, but no one's forced to get it. They just should know that it exists. But yeah, no, I paid them, you know, I put my credit card on file. I said, boost this post, and they get back to me, no, we won't do it. It's got political content. It's got political content. Well, what doesn't? I mean,
they're the side that says the personal is political, and when just reading the log line for Paper Tigers, it sounds like it's addressing politics, but it doesn't sound like the most.
background.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the most egregious concept for a book. I could see this on the shelf at Barnes and Noble, like just with this log line.
Tell there's a party scene in Paper Tigers. Again, Paper Tigers is a great book, and I'm not saying it because I wrote it. I would love to read it, you know. But there's a party scene where Nick is the conservative cowboy. They're both interns at the Washington Post, and I was an intern at copy at the Washington Post. And you have to be really smart and really sharp, and it's like the center of the universe, you know, the Washington Post. You know, less so now with under the Bezos regime, but he's, you know, this is the goal for him. He's stricken. Laura London, Nick Jarrett, Laura London, and thank you for the opportunity. I didn't think I'd be talking as much about Paper Tigers, but I did want to make a point about political. The personal is political, what you just said. So she's living with a Senate aide for, say, a Chuck Schumer type, a very important guy. However, they're in the minority, so they're less important. Under Trump, the Republicans are in the majority. And so everyone's downcast. Trump is president. So she invites him to a party at her house in Washington, D.C., and she lives with this guy. And you know, already Nick said, we're not going to be friends, which is, let's just be friends. No, we're not going to be friends. That's not going to happen. You know, it's either something or nothing. And so he goes to the party, and of course, he's like a fish out of water. Everybody is like Planned Parenthood or PETA or, I mean, it's just, and they're all moping around because of Trump and the fact that they're in the minority. And so he's trying not to be controversial. He's literally making an effort, and people are just talking about, oh, God, can you believe the court, blah, blah, blah. And finally he just, and they start asking him, and he's trying to avoid trouble, but finally he says, look, let's just talk about the Redskins game. Let's just talk about the Redskins game Sunday. And then there's utter silence, and everybody's looking at him, you know. And this was written 2 years ago. And he's going, what? No, what? He goes, well, we don't use the name of that team. He goes, what? And he goes, well, it's offensive to Native Americans. And he goes, I'm from Cheyenne. You know, the guy goes, you know, I'm from Cheyenne, Wyoming. He goes, have any of you even seen an Indian? Ever in your life seen an Indian? No. He goes, well, their skin is not red. You know, they don't have red skin. They used to put berry juice on their faces, you know, at war. So red skin is about as insulting as red coat, you know, to an Englishman, you know. And anyway, it's funny. I wrote that scene just for what you say, that no matter what, everything becomes political. And a conservative sticks out. But yeah, it's a great book, and people ought to read it, no matter what happens this election.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be a great, what's the word, time capsule of everything that's going on right now, just be like, what happened during the Trump administration? Read this.
And the question is, Tyler, does chemistry trump ideology? That's what the Paper Tigers is. It's like Romeo and Juliet, the Capulets and the Montagues, but serious fanatical liberalism and just wanting to be left alone as a conservative believing in mom and apple pie and religion. So yeah, it's now, yeah. So for so for Christmas spirit, I decided to go the whole other way of just a nice, sweet story. They're both great, but one's a little book, almost like a Christmas card, And I'm hoping people, hang on a second.
Sure.
I should have had it handy. Yeah, it's nothing, It's like.
That's a Saturday afternoon right there.
Yeah, 20. It's funny. I looked up at 21,000 words. Christmas Carol is 28,000 words. So it's shorter than, but it's a lovely, uplifting, cheering little gift that you can give, and that's what I want. And obviously the publisher went crazy as soon as they saw it, and other people wanted it. So.
I'm sure if you turned in Infinite Jest, they probably would have took another look and be like, okay, next Christmas probably. But yeah, in terms of Paper Tigers, I think that's a really interesting metaphor of just kind of exploring how people from other sides of the aisle can come together, especially since like right now half the country is like, we need to secede. We want. It's like that's an open question. It's a question of people getting along is an open question right now.
No, I don't think they can. I think.
Well, yeah.
I don't think they can yet, because they've been. I mean, there's so many factors involved. Feminism, for instance. Feminism, to me, disaster. I mean, disaster has destroyed the happiness and well-being of women. And when you see the quote unquote resistance against Trump, it's led by women. And where did they come? Have you seen the Women in Cars videos?
I haven't seen that, no.
Look up liberal women in car. It's like when Judge Ginsburg died.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's the people just screaming into their phones.
Screaming. Screaming to their iPhones. How did this happen? All you had to do was live another. It's just I'm going, what? Where? Those women did not exist. So Laura London is based on a real woman that I knew and was very much in love with. So, and she was the classiest, coolest, smartest, wittiest woman. Amazing. I mean, you had to be on top of your game just to be in the room with her. For instance, and that's what I wrote about. Again, I can't believe I'm talking so much about Paper Tigers, which again I love.
No, buy both of his books. You can keep talking about.
Did you ever see a movie called His Kind of Woman?
That sounds familiar, but I don't think I have.
It's Robert Mitchum, Jane Russell, and Vincent Price. It's a masterpiece that nobody knows about. It's a film noir masterpiece that nobody knows about, except Martin Scorsese and guys like that, geniuses like that. But again, this is real life, and this is real life, which happened to me. So I wrote the scene just as it happened in real life, which is we'd go to the copy-aid station. In the copy-aid station, everybody would meet and would be sorting mail and would be talking. So Laura and I, or in this case, Nick, Laura and Nick banter. And they banter and they banter, and sometimes one gets the upper hand, but it's all wit. It's not cruelty. and Nick is like going crazy, and he doesn't know how to reach his. He has to get. He can't roll over because, but so he's got to be super sharp, and she's super sharp, and they go at it, and like, well, I'm not gonna spend, but Nick okay. So just this happened in real life, but I'll just use Nick instead of me. So Nick goes home to his apartment, and he's watching His Kind of Woman. And as a movie guy, you appreciate it. And I'm talking about these women, where they come from, and what you can be like. I'm trying to stay on tune with liberals, classic liberals like Laura and other people. You can absolutely get along with. You can disagree, but you can get along with. Nick goes home and he's falling asleep, but he's got His Kind of Woman on. And the setup of His Kind of Woman is Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell are together in this Mexican casino on an island in the middle of nowhere. We don't know why Mitchum is there. It's a mystery. He doesn't know why he's there. He's being paid to be there. And something's going to happen. He doesn't know what. Jane Russell is there. It's a resort. It's the Mexican resort. Jane Russell is there because she's having an affair with a married movie star. And this is her last chance to get him to marry her. The movie star is played by Vincent Price in a role that, with any justice, would have won an Academy Award because he's so good. But she's very frustrated because she's put all her eggs on the idea of him proposing to her and leaving his wife in the resort. And he hasn't said anything about it yet. So she's needling. Whatever he says, she starts picking at him and needling him. And I'm almost falling asleep, and I'm almost falling asleep. Nick is almost falling asleep. And Vincent Price turns to Jane Russell and says, if you use that needle for sewing, you'd be a happier woman. Okay, you might not think anything of the line, but this is in the 90s, okay? If you use that needle for sewing, you'd be a much happier woman. Now, think about that in modern and by modern feminism terms. Back then it was a shot. But it was just a shot. But today, it's a double shot. It's a whammy, Needle sewing, what women are supposed to do. Back then, that's what women were supposed to do, right? But now, so Nick wakes up like, oh my God. That night, so the next day he goes to the copy station, and sure enough, blah, blah, blah. Nick, blah, blah, blah. And finally, Nick says, if you use that needle for sewing, you'd be a much happier woman. Of course, dead, stop, full stop. Yeah, even people on Nick's side can't believe he just said. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's the kind of thing women, I've known feminist women I still know. They're beautiful, they're great, they're sharp, they read, but green hair, screaming, where did that come from? That's feminism, and these are the people that may be in charge now. The AOCs and the Emar Omars. It's a frightening thought, Tyler. It's a frightening thought.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, if whatever happens with the election, I think that I think the left's probably going to end up throwing a lot of that out just because if Biden's probably going to be the controlling voice of the party going forward. And
wait, think of what you just said. Biden, the controlling voice.
Well, apparently there was a screaming match behind the scenes on election night between Democratic insiders, and a bunch of the moderates started actually speaking out for once and saying, yeah, we should have won all the Senate seats because of you people, when we would have if it weren't for all the socialists out there. And then Rashida Tlaib called them all racist. So
were you a Star Trek fan?
Yeah.
The classic Star Trek.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them, so I've seen the whole original series, of course. So
the original series.
Yeah.
Only I frankly hate all the other ones. But I wrote. I loved. I love the movies pretty much, featuring the original cast. But I wrote a piece for American Spectator about it. Do you remember the Nazi episode of Star Trek?
Yeah, I do.
Remember the Kirk's sister, his mentor, John Gill.
I don't remember that one offhand, but you can go ahead, keep talking about it.
Please look up my my American Spectator column.
I saw it. I haven't read that one yet, but I will.
Please read that one, because you can go to the beauty of modern journalism is that, or internet journalism, is you can click on links, you know. So I'm describing a scene, and you can actually click and see the scene. Anyway, not to discuss politics, but I've never seen I've not only the bile, right, that's out there, but that it's allowed and permitted by the so-called you say, you know, Biden can control it. You know, nobody can control it. Nobody can control this. It's there's another great book. I recommend it, not mine. The Madness of Crowds.
I've heard of it. Douglas Murray.
Brilliant stuff. It's funny, the intellect, all the intellectual firepower that I can see is on the right. I can see no people on the left to compare with Victor David Hanson and Douglas Murray and Andrew Klavan and you know, I don't see it, but maybe it's out there.
Well, it's this vague amorphous cultural power of people that are competent liberals that just kind of let a lot of that stuff slide by.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're welcome to come in and counter argue, but they're not out there.
All right. So I didn't have any other questions regarding your books, but yeah, everyone should go out and buy Christmas Spirit and Paper Tigers and make Paper Tigers into a cult hit. But yeah, I appreciate your time. It was great talking with you.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much, and all the best. And Merry Christmas.
You too. Have a good day.
Bye.
The AntiSocial Network is a Groupthink Productions podcast. Editing, producing, and hosting are by Tyler Hummel. Artwork by Crystal Calley. And original music was composed by Melissa LaFira and the late Dan Smolla. Like, subscribe, and please let us know what you think about the show in the comments below if you'd like to see anyone interesting be a guest on the show. Thank you for listening.